Hello friends, it is Mina and welcome to another video on this YouTube channel. If you are new here, then what's up? I am just a 38-year-old single female cat mom and definitely a deep diver into the land of the woo. I'm also in leadership within my muggle life, within my day job. Single mom to a teen that has struggled a lot with self-harming and substance abuse. I'm all about empowerment and sovereignty and problem solving and finding peace and joy in a life that's filled with chaos. So if any of those subjects are conversations that you would want to be a part of on this YouTube channel, then I invite you to subscribe and hang out. So it is midnight. I just got done with work. I've got one more day this week, and so I just wanted to snuggle up, and I felt like coming on and just holding space. And it's interesting because I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about tonight, and now that I'm kind of settling in, I'm feeling inspired to call forth relationships. For those of us that are single, for those of us that have, done a lot of our internal work, our reflective work, our shadow work, our emotional intelligence, our, coping skills in a healthy way, it can be very challenging to try to align with relationships in general. This could mean relationships with friends, romantic relationships. It could look like relationships at work, potentially relationships with family, just relationships in general with the general public can be challenging for those of us who have, dedicated our lives to a path of some sort of self-mastery, self-enlightenment, continuous growth, pathways towards, aligned and healthy discipline. I find myself questioning myself a lot. I find myself struggling to be present with my feelings, and I would say specifically like feelings of isolation, feelings of loneliness, feelings of depression. And that's usually connected to not feeling like you have a tribe, not feeling like you have a community. And I've struggled with that a lot. And it's very interesting because on my path and on my journey, I've really focused a lot on my boundaries. I was somebody that was a doormat for a long time. Then I became a people pleaser coupled with like this savior complex of being with people that maybe I was looking at their potential. So I was in a relationship with their potential versus who they are. Or feeling like you can save them or you can help them. And we actually get this a lot when people start to awaken in their spiritual journey. The first thing that some people gravitate towards is like, I'm in a missionary state and now I want to share this enlightenment and this journey of peace and joy with the world. But It's just like when you have a friend and they look amazing, but they always talk about themselves in a negative way. And they're like, I'm ugly, I'm fat, I look horrible. You can sit there and tell them that they look amazing till the sun goes down. And unless they believe it, they're never going to accept that. And so the same thing can be said when we awaken to our spiritual path and what is aligned for us. If we feel like the next step is to tell everybody, that's fine. But don't expect people to be as excited about it as we are, because they have no idea the reality of what we are experiencing through our lens and, in this body on this planet. It's really interesting because, as I journeyed through going through some of those things and starting to find my voice and starting to focus on like, what do boundaries look like for me? Then I became somebody who started to speak my boundaries, and people didn't listen, and then they still treated me a certain way. And so I would just back down. Okay, I spoke my boundaries, nobody listened. Okay, I'll just, do what they want or do what they're pressuring me to do, because I'd rather do that than have conflict. Well, eventually I decided that just speaking my boundaries was not sufficient, and I had to embody them. I had to follow them through to manifestation. I had to follow them through to being anchored in the physical reality. And what I found through this relationship that I developed with my boundaries and embodying them is I realized that the person that I am now, who doesn't pretend that red flags are not present in somebody, the person I am now who dates based on who you are in front of me, not your potential or who you're saying you want to be. If I were that person in my 20s and early 30s, I might not have ever dated anyone that is currently in my past history. And that's kind of scary to think about. But one of the sad and hard things to do when you are somebody that is on a path of self-mastery and self-enlightenment and continuing to grow, a path of spiritual growth, one of the sad things is letting go of toxic people. Because depending on what you're exposed to, it is a land of plenty. And it's so sad when you meet someone new and you're so excited. Maybe this is the friendship I was looking for. Maybe this was the dream job I was hoping for. Maybe this was my soulmate that is finally manifested into my life. And then you start to see the flags showing up. And here come the red flags. And it's like, okay, well, some red flags are fine. I love a good conversation where we can both talk about what our red flags are that we're working through. But there might be just energies of incompatibility. There might be energies of like, I'm not attracted. Or there might be red flags that show up. And especially the older we get, the more we kind of go into this space of, I value my peace. So many relationships that I have attempted to live a life with a partner in love and union ended in tragedy, where I lost everything, where I lost my home and I lost my community. I lost my belongings. I lost my friends. My whole safety and security frequency foundation of my life was uprooted. And you can only be like blind faith jumping into relationships for so many repetitions before it's like insanity means expecting something different while doing the same thing. And so we become people that are validly slightly suspicious when we go into vetting somebody new. We become people that value our peace and are hesitant before we just openly offer it to somebody else. And it can be hard. You know, I had somebody that was so precious to me and was so unhealthy to be around. And some of these people keep coming back. It's like I block them. I let them know that it's not a good fit or relationship. Like I even delete their number and their thread, so I'm not even tempted to reach out. But like they come back. And they come back because they miss how they felt when they were with me, either through friendship or through romance. It's like they're so narcissistic. It's not even about them caring about me as a person. It's about them seeing themselves reflected through my eyes, because I'm the type of person that will point out your strengths and will present opportunities and, you know, will encourage and support. So like I'm a good person to be around because I'm constantly investigating and reflecting and fine-tuning and finding new disciplined ways to accomplish these things within my own life. And so like I will lovingly call you out if you're regurgitating a story of negative patterns to yourself. But then I have to look, so this is the hard part. I look at my life and I'm like, okay, I can see that I'm being helpful to this person and I'm super glad and grateful for that. And, you know, at work, I coach my employees, and like with any side businesses that I have, like I do tarot readings and healing sessions. And so I'm holding space for people. But what about my space? What about people being supportive of me? You know, what about somebody that's holding space for me? Don't I deserve that too? Can I have friends that are outside of the spirit world? Like, what? And so I think about those things, because if somebody just falls into a relationship that is an equal match, they should be challenging us. They should be a positive influence on us. I don't want to always have to be my own cheerleader and your cheerleader too. That sucks. And so, like, this person just came back into my life recently. And another thing that is maybe a flaw and a gift is like, I forgive. That is one of my life purposes, is I am a channel of forgiveness. And so being a space of forgiveness is great until someone comes back and reintroduces themselves, because then you're like, sure, welcome, let's chat, let's mingle, let's hug, let's reconnect. Why did we ever disconnect in the first place? I don't know why, but it doesn't matter. Welcome back. I've missed you. I care for you. You know, stop. But then, if that person hasn't been doing any of their work if they come back to you more selfish and hurtful and toxic and harmful than they were before, then you just keep re-blocking the same people that keep wanting to come back into your life. And it's weird. It's lonely. It's icky. It's just, ugh. But you know what? Today I was getting a message from my guides, because I've actually been really struggling this week in a professional capacity with this as well. I've really just tried to be a champion, be a positive influence, be, a good example, but also be a catalyst for change in my professional life. And everything that's been reflected back to me has been kind of unwelcoming. And I really kind of reflect on that these past few days, and I'm like, is it me? Am I trying to push something that nobody wants? Am I trying to say that I want this thing, but I'm really so self-righteous, and maybe I think I'm better than everybody else, and maybe that's why I'm presenting something that people are like, boo, and so I really try to hold space with what my part is and how I can show up in the best capacity. But I don't know, it's crazy. People are so scared to step outside of the crowd. They'll tell me in confidence how they're struggling in certain capacities, but when I raise my voice up to set the stage and to be an anchor of support for them to also speak up, they're silent. And so I cannot be the only one that's advocating for positive change and then being the only one to step out of the crowd, and then no one steps up to support me, and now I just look like the bad guy. And that feels super isolating too. And so I've been thinking about that these past few days, because it's just been reflecting a lot. And sometimes when we're in the land of the woo and the spiritual community, whatever lens that looks like, or pathway, because I hold a lot of them, trust. Sometimes when it starts reflecting through every avenue, we do kind of question, is this the course of my life kind of preparing me for change? Is every door shutting in my attempts to grow in this capacity because my growth is not meant to look like this pathway, but maybe it's this pathway, or maybe it's this pathway. And so this is preparing me to expand my observation towards other possibilities. It could be. But Spirit was coming through today specifically and was really saying, you need to think about where your tribe is. Because if I am in a life where everything that is being reflected back to me is misaligned with who I think that I am, and also where I'm striving to go, if everything in my current reality is misaligned to that, that means that I'm in the playground of the wrong park. I'm hanging out and trying to mingle with people in the wrong setting. I can't be over in prison, but trying to meet scholars. Will I meet scholars in prison? Yeah, but I'd probably meet them easier in a university or in a library or at a seminar. And so Spirit was coming through very strongly with that message today and was like, are you in the wrong landscape? Are you regurgitating? You know, the conversation is when we want to become different, when we want to up level ourselves and become the next better version of ourselves, we have to change. And sometimes part of that change is changing environments and changing access points and changing the landscape through which we are attempting to connect with people. And so that is an invitation that was coming through for me today and is also the inspiration for tonight's video. If you find that everything in your external world or in a certain theme of your life is really kind of giving you these unwelcoming reactions and responses, because remember, everything that we're doing is a dance with the universe. We're giving and it gives back. And how we either like or dislike what it gives back helps us to fine tune what it is that we're striving for and what we want and where we are striving to go. But when it gives back this ick and you receive it, don't keep going back and expecting it to give back better in that pathway. You have to expand and open the spectrum of possibilities to start to realign to what your pathway looks like now. And I think that that's been my miss. That's where I've been missing it, because I keep going back through the same pathway. I keep holding space in the same parks and the same sandboxes. And I'm like, where are all the scholars at, bro? Like, where are they? They're not here, girlfriend. Like, you're in the wrong sandbox. That one's down the street. Take a left, down that alleyway, 2 doors on the right. Okay, let's find our way over there. And so that's really what I'm striving for. I'm really holding space for aligning myself with my dream life. And that's not to say that I'm not also holding space for being grateful and at peace and happy with where my life is right now. And that is part of this emotional groundedness that I've also been connecting with this month. But I'm 38. I'm a single mom. My kiddo is going to be 18 next year. I might be an empty nester before I'm 40. Just with a few devious fur babies you might hear in the background of these videos or see behind me. So I'm gearing up for my 40s to be my golden decade. I want my 40s to be like my 20s, but like with smarter decisions. So as I gear towards that, you know, when I'm met with despair or loneliness or frustration, you know, the solution can't just be to give up. The solution can't just be to drown myself in my sorrows or unhealthy addictions or doom scrolling until I pass out and go to sleep for the night or whatever. You know, the goal is to fine tune. The goal is to hold space. The goal is to create little pockets and vortexes of light, of healing, of magic, of possibility. And did you know that actually holding space, even for conversations like this, in itself is a little tear, it is a little vortex of possibilities that we share. Especially if we resonate with, like, if you're watching this and you're vibing with what I'm saying and you're like, I've been feeling that too. You know, it creates this little like rift across space and time. And there's unknown possibilities in the small, subtle whispers of this plane, of this place. So, you know, I struggle. I struggle a lot, but I also have a lot of hope, and I'm also willing to do the work to continue on this pathway towards bliss, continued bliss and peace and creativity and discipline and challenging myself to grow and to be a better version than I was yesterday and to do what's right because I believe it's right. And I know in my heart that that's what's best for my life, even if nobody understands it. As long as it's not hurting anyone, as long as it's truly for, their benefit or what's best, or for my benefit or what's best, that's okay. And it might not look the same for everybody. Like, for example, what I'm referring to when I say that is the other day, I was in a manager meeting. Oh, it was awful. Manager training, coaching. And they were like, we were wrapping up this session, and it was like the 6th session we had. And they were like, if you could do one thing on this list that would have the biggest impact, what would it be? And a lot of them chose answers that were external from themselves, this employee did this, or this person accomplished this, or this system worked better, whatever. And my answer was, I think that working on myself would have the biggest impact. Because the more that I work on myself, the more I can have difficult conversations without getting emotionally hijacked or without being so uncomfortable that I can't ask, my employee a question like, hey, tell me what's going on. I'm here for you. Give it to me. Tell me what's happening. Some people, they're so scared to hear the response that they just blah it out and go, be better. That's not healthy management or leadership. But like when I said working on myself, nobody was curious. Mina, what do you mean by that? My reaction that I receive from my peers is dismissal. Dismissal, not curiosity, dismissal. People like that don't work at companies like this. Companies like this want leaders like this. Wow. So me being true to myself, authentic, and saying working on myself would have the biggest impact to my team ultimately. It doesn't just end with me working on myself. It starts there, and then I start my workday. And the working on myself is the behavior that creates the result. So instead, I was pretty much indirectly told that you're not one of us and you don't belong here. Yay. And then the coach was like, does working on yourself mean that you're not a XYZ base leader? No, it doesn't. And that's where that conversation ended, and it stuck with me. And I was like, wow. So I was vulnerable. I put myself out there, and I stepped outside of the crowd because everybody was saying the same answers. We're just regurgitating these answers here. And I was like, well, actually, I feel like this. I'm trying to be hopeful. I'm trying to be encouraging. I'm trying to be inspirational, And so I said what I thought was right. And my reaction from my peers was, you're not one of us. You don't belong here, indirectly. And I'm like, wow, that's hurtful. It also shows that they're not wanting to grow. They're not willing to grow. They're not interested in growing. So, this isn't to be a poo-poo conversation, but it's reality. It's real. It is a real conversation that a lot of us that are just strut through life trying to do our best, trying to find and encourage and, create positive change, it's what we're met with. And it's so discouraging and it's so isolating because it's like, it almost makes us want to quit, right? What's the point? They're not listening. They're not curious. They're dismissing. But that's not the answer. The answer is, though, you might be in the wrong room. You might be playing at the wrong sandbox. You might be entertaining the wrong group of friends. The invitation got sent out to that old group. So, anyway, kind of a rambling video. It's the witching hour, darling. So that sometimes happens. Let me know your thoughts. If you've experienced anything like this. If you haven't, then wow, you're blessed. Or have you left home recently? Have you engaged with others recently? Anyway, let me know your thoughts. If you've experienced anything like this, I would invite you to share whatever you feel like in that comment section below. Of course, any which way to get a hold of me further will be down in that description box. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you can stay up to date with videos as they come out. This is Mina. Stay wild and spooky, but most of all, stay magical. Until next time, take care.